In most programs that you write, you're going to come across a time when you need to do one thing if certain conditions are met, but a different thing if other conditions are met. And these are called decisions or conditions. And the way we accomplish this is by using if and else statements. So we're going to take a look at how to do those in Swift. So let's look at a quick example. And you can see I'm starting with a relatively new playground here. I'm just going to create a constant. I'll let the age equal 18. So decisions or conditions in Swift are accomplished using the if keyword. So I can start with if, and then I write a condition that needs to be met. So we'll say age greater than 18. So that's the condition. And notice I used the greater than sign. I could have greater than or equals. I could use less than or equals. I could have equals equals, means that the two values are equivalent. Or I can use not equals. Okay, that means that if age is not equal to 18. But for right now, I'm going to say if age is less than 18, and then I'm going to use a curly brace. And when I hit enter, you can see that Swift automatically puts in a closing curly brace for me, which is very convenient. So anything I write in here between these two curly braces is executed if this condition is true. So if the age is less than 18, whatever is in here is executed, otherwise nothing will happen. So I'll just do a simple print, you cannot vote yet. So let's go ahead and run this. I'll click the play button, and nothing happened because age is 18, and so this means that age is not less than 18, so this is false. Let's go ahead and change this to 16. Now if I run it, it says you cannot vote yet. I get the output, and you can see it in the console as well. Well, what if I wanted to do one thing if the condition is true, and the other thing and something else if the condition is false? Well, I can do that with the addition of an else keyword. So again, I'll use else, and then I can do print, looks like you can vote. Let me spell that right. So in this statement, it checks to see if the condition is true. If it is, this is executed. If it's not, the else statement gets executed. So let's go ahead and run this. Should get the same answer, you cannot vote yet. Let's change this to 25 and run it. And it says, looks like you can vote because this condition is no longer true, so this gets run. So an if and an else are used if I just have two possibilities. But there are many occasions where I have more than two possibilities. So in those instances, you're going to use what's called an else if. So let's say we're going to the movie theater and I'm trying to figure out which ticket price to pay. And it's free if I'm under 2. If I'm 12 or under, I pay one price. And if I am over 12, I pay full price. So let's say, I'll say the age is, let's say 12 for right now. So I'm going to change my conditions. If I'm going to say if age is less than or equal to 2, print, you get in free. And then after this, I'm going to put an else if. And I have to give a condition here as well. So else if age is less than or equal to 12, I can say you pay half price. And then else, which is my final condition, print whoops, forgot my quote, you pay full price. So let's go ahead and run this. Again, my age is 12. And since age is less than or equal to 12, it says you pay half price. If I change this to 1 and run it, I get in free. And if I change it to 18, I pay full price. It's possible to use as many else ifs as you want, but at some point that starts to get a little bit cumbersome and messy. So there's another way to accomplish the same thing that we'll look at in a few minutes. Before that, let's talk a little bit about Boolean values. You can actually assign an expression or a condition to a variable. So for example, I can say let can vote equal age greater than 18. And since Swift knows that this is a comparison, this should be I'm going to hold the option key down, and it knows that this is a Boolean value. This will be either true or false. So then if I write an if statement, I can write if can vote, since this is already true or false. And I could write my condition in here. So this is sometimes, you'll see this as a way to shorten up an if statement. Well, it's possible to check more than one thing to be true or false before it can be evaluated. And those are called compound statements. So for example, at our school, at the end of the year, if you are a senior and you have your high enough average, you do not have to take final exams. So it might look like something like this. Let grade equal 12 and let average equal 86. Then I can say if grade is equal to 12, and it's not less than or equal, it has to be exactly 12, and the way I write and is two ampersands, it's the one above the 7 key on most keyboards. Average is greater than or equal to 85. Print, you do not have to take finals. So both of these conditions must be true in order for this statement to be printed. So in this case, grade is 12 and average is 86. And it says you do not have to take finals. I can just put in an else statement, print, you do have to take the exam. So if I change the average to 84, both of these are not true anymore because this condition is not true. So the else is printed because this is now, the whole thing is now false. If you want one or the other to be true, I can use an or condition. And the way you use ors, it's two vertical lines, and that's the straight up and down line above the enter or return key. So in this case, either one has to be true. So if I do this now, I do not have to take finals because my grade is 12. Only one of these has to be true. A few minutes ago, we talked about the eventuality of having too many else-if statements, and we said there's a better way to do that. And that's called the switch statement. And it really avoids a lot of complicated if and else if statements. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to say let pet equal dog. I'm going to start off with a dog. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to see what sounds the different animals make. So again, the sound the animal makes depends on what type of pet it is. So I'm going to switch on the variable pet. So my value is pet. And my first case is, well, it might be, what if it's a dog? And in that case, I'm going to run some code. I'm going to print, oops, bark. So you can see this is the variable I'm testing. These are the different cases. Then I can have multiple cases. So in case if it's a dog, I put print bark. The default is if it's none of the cases, what happens? So in this case, I'll put print, I don't know what sound that makes. So if I run this, let me go ahead and delete some of this just to get out of our way. Okay, so I'll run that, and it goes bark. If I make this cat and run it, the default case is run because it's not a dog. However, I could put a cat in there, so I'll put another case, cat, and then a colon, and I'll put print meow. And while I'm here for good measure, I'll put case cow, and I'll print moo, and I'll print case duck, print quack. And you can see this looks a little bit neater and easier to read than a whole bunch of else if and braces everywhere. So if I change this to cow and and run it, it says moo. If I make it cat, it says meow, and so forth. You can actually have multiple options for a particular case. So for example, if I wanted to get specific in terms of types of dog, I can separate it by comma. So I might have a poodle, and I might have a Great Dane. And so if I said poodle and run that, it would still say bark because poodle is in this case. So again, if you want multiple values for a particular outcome, you can separate those by commas. The last thing we're going to talk about is something called a ternary operator. And this is something that you don't see all the time, but it's a common enough occurrence that it's worth talking about. And before I start, I'm going to get rid of this a little bit. We'll start from a clean slate. And there's a common occurrence that you see. Let me show you an example of that. So I might have a ticket price, and I'll set it equal to 0 first of all. And then I might have a let child cost equal, I'll make that a double 2. And let adult cost equal 7.5. And let age equal 15. So for example, there's times when if you are under 16, you pay one price, and if you're over 16 or over, you pay another price. And so you'll see an if statement like this. If age is greater than or equal to 16, actually I can do just greater than 15, print, actually not print, I'm going to say the ticket cost equals the adult cost. Else ticket cost equals the child cost. So basically it's checking the age. If it's greater than 15, so you're 16 or above, you are paying the adult cost. Otherwise, you're paying the child cost. And if I print the ticket cost after this is done, because the age is 15 and it's not greater than 15, 15 is not greater than 15, I'm paying the child cost. If I make this, whoops, not 117, that would be pretty old. If I make it that and print it, I get the adult price. And again, that's kind of a long way to do it, but there's a simpler one-line method to do that because this comes up often enough, and that's called a ternary operator. So I can put the ticket cost is going to equal, I'm going to put my condition, so age greater than 15, so if the age is greater than 15, I put the question mark and then followed by the value if it's true. So I put the adult cost, then a colon, and then a value if it's false. So because the assignment comes up often enough, many languages have this ternary operator that does it in one line. So the ticket cost, then the condition, the value if true, the value if false. So if this is true, adult cost gets assigned a ticket cost. If this is false, child cost gets assigned a ticket cost. So let's just make sure that works. Let's print this again. I'm still getting 7.5. If I make my age 12 and run it, I get the child cost this time. So it is working. So that was a very quick look at conditionals in Swift and if and else and switch statements. In the next video, we'll actually open up Xcode proper and learn how to navigate the interface and run and stop some very basic apps.